How do you spark economic growth in rural communities in developing countries using waste? How do you empower youth to expand their employment opportunities? How do you do both while making a profit? We believe that we have validated the possibility of doing all of these things, and we will show you how we did it. Grit was started when we were challenged by the Halt Prize competition to tackle the important problem of youth unemployment. We saw this as an opportunity to motivate unengaged young people into helping solve another global issue: energy poverty. Rural communities around the world lack access to the main grid because of their location. Youth in these communities tend to be underemployed, lacking the education and employment opportunities afforded to those in cities. Our idea at Grit is to employ these rural youth to power the communities that they live in, using the two problems to solve each other. This is a snapshot of our initial business canvas, where we have the first components of our business. The most important elements in our canvas that we need to focus on initially were key resources, key activities, customer relationships, and cost structure. The first hypothesis that we need to address was around the type of technology we would be using to provide energy in these rural communities. Our first hypothesis was, solar power is a viable, affordable, and long-term energy source for remote villages. Our second was, since solar power is already a well-established technology, it will be easier to implement within these communities. We began doing our own research into solar energy, and we were able to talk to two electrical engineering professors at the University of Waterloo that quickly discouraged solar. Though solar is becoming more affordable and efficient, it has not yet reached the levels that would be needed in developing communities like this. More importantly, solar power requires tremendous engineering expertise, making our goal of employment an impossibility. This was our first pivot. We needed a new source of energy. After researching different sources of energy, we opted for biogas. This change impacted our key resources, key activities, and cost structure boxes. We thus formulated new hypotheses. Our first hypothesis was, biogas plants are much cheaper to set up and require less technical know-how. Our second was, using organic waste such as manure is ideal for these rural communities whose main industry is agriculture. After conducting 4 interviews with chemical engineering professors, we validated our 2 hypotheses. Additionally, we continue to experiment with the efficiency of the waste material we may have available. By attending events like the Canadian Biogas Conference, we are able to speak to over 20 experts about the viability of our plant and gain valuable potential partners. Now that we knew how we were going to provide power, we needed to find the right customer segment to target. During our initial research, we identified Indonesia as a great starting place for us. Indonesia has the highest rate of youth unemployment in Asia at 15.64% and 13,000 communities that do not have electricity. Our hypothesis was, we are able to connect with Indonesian communities that fit our target demographic and communicate our value effectively. After conducting 2 interviews with Indonesian NGOs and 5 interviews with international NGOs with a presence in Indonesia, we realized that it would be extremely difficult to foster a strong relationship without having a local presence. This was our second major pivot. We decided to change our market to Colombia. One of our co-founders, Sebastian, is from Colombia, and he was able to make connections with local NGOs quickly. They confirmed our hypothesis that rural Colombian communities would be easier to access and would have the interest and financial capability to pay for our product. Next, we wanted to fill in gaps in our knowledge about electricity generation. We spoke to an energy consultant for the World Bank in Mexico, and he highlighted to us the fact that installing grids is the most expensive part of electrification. As we researched further and talked with the electrical engineering professors again, we quickly realized that he was correct. This invalidated our hypothesis that we could provide an energy source and a grid in a cost-effective manner. So rather than providing grids as well, we decided that we would initially focus on just providing the energy source and tapping into already existing grids which are only lacking an adequate and steady source of power. From this, we needed to confirm with our partner NGOs that there were villages in Colombia that already had a grid. Our hypothesis was, there is a market of Colombian villages that have existing grids, but do not have reliable sources of power. Our partner NGOs identified several villages that fit this profile, validating this hypothesis. Additionally, they were able to validate another hypothesis we were struggling to find data about. Colombian villagers have the financial resources to pay for regular electricity usage, enough that we could earn a profit. Although officially, energy access in Colombia is 99%, this number includes villages like the ones our partners identified. We learned that people in these villages were currently driving up to 10 hours to purchase diesel from cities. This diesel would then be brought back to the village to be used in a diesel generator connected to the grid. Because of the high costs associated with this, the communities can only afford 4 hours of electricity a day. Not only are these communities able to pay for energy produced from our biogas plant, they are actively searching for cheaper sources of more reliable energy. So this is where we are currently. We know our energy source is viable, our target market suits our offering, and that we can connect with these communities successfully. Throughout this process, we have learned many things about the difficulties surrounding providing energy to rural communities. First, we realized that providing energy itself is not the most expensive part. Providing the grid is. We could not create a company that did it all. We needed to focus on what we believed we could provide. Second, we learned that there are many rural communities like the ones in Colombia that are considered to have access to electricity on paper, but do not in practice. Third, we continue to learn about the complexities of biogas. Though we have validated that it is the best energy source for these communities, biogas is complex and dependent on the materials used. We continue to work on our MVP, utilizing the waste materials that are most available in the communities that we are going to work in: rice, palm oil, and cocoa. Our next steps are to validate our new hypotheses, which we will test by visiting a community in Colombia. We have a site visit planned for the end of April to a community called Yurabengui, where we will test the following hypotheses. The first is, these communities have enough crop waste to create efficient energy generation. The second, these communities have at least some livestock to help supplement the methanogen creation. And the third, that these communities have youth that are looking for job opportunities outside of agriculture. We look forward to seeing where these hypotheses take us.